The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Higher Education Forum. Thank you for taking the time to attend today. I hope you'll find this morning useful. My name is Alexandra Moore, and I work for the UKOUG to deliver events and webinars such as this one. Okay, so before we get started, I would just like to cover a few housekeeping rules for this webinar. Firstly, if you have got any questions throughout the webinar, please do type it in the question box, which you'll see on the right of your screen, or raise your hand and I'll put them forward to the speakers at the end of their presentations. This is your chance to ask the experts any questions that you may have, so please don't hesitate to ask them. If you're unable to hear me or see during the presentation, please just type this in the question box and we will do our best to try and resolve this. The webinar today is being recorded and a link to this recording will be sent in a post-webinar email along with a copy of the slides used today. Before we get started, I just wanted to share a bit about what UK Oracle User Group do to support you and the community. We deliver content through webinars, meetups, events and conferences relating to all Oracle applications and technologies. Whether it's a problem with said technology, the latest updates, or to make better informed decisions about your journey, we can help. Being independent from Oracle means we deliver unbiased content and provide honest solutions to your problems. With the current situation around COVID-19, we are constantly trying to find ways of still getting content to you as our members. If you have any suggestions of topics for a webinar that would interest you, or if in fact you would like to present one yourself, please do let us know. We wouldn't be able to run these events if it wasn't for the volunteers who make up our committees. You can see a list of the volunteers on the screen now. So thank you to the Higher Education Committee who put together the agenda for this event and worked with us to transform it into a virtual event when we realised that was the way to go. I would also like to say thank you to our event sponsor, SplashBI. We can't run these events without the support of partners like these. SplashBI will also be speaking in one of the sessions this morning. Today's agenda features a number of key suppliers in your industry who will share their knowledge and top tips. We'll be finishing at 12:15 today, just in time for lunch. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to our first speakers, which are Deano, McCloy and Nigel Thomas. They both work for Oracle and they will be providing us with an update on their services. I'm just handing over to Nigel for the control now.
Okay, good morning all. Just checking you can all see my screen. Yep, okay, thank you. So Deano and I have been asked to give 10-15 minutes presentation just to give you an update on where we are. Similar to what we did at the last presentation coming off the back of Oracle Open Worlds in San Francisco. We understand, as I said, you can ask questions via the chat, and obviously we'll pick these up where we can, going through the process or at the end, as and when we get asked to answer. So I think you know most of us as Deano and I this morning, who are both directors for UK Higher Education. Deano focuses on the HCM space, and I look after the ERP, which covers finance and student management. I think it's obviously clear that the first thing that we need to go into is where we are with coronavirus and Oracle's view on that and statement. And it's probably one of the reasons why I'm sitting in the car at the moment, because I'm trying to get some peace from the family and my kids, young kids who are off school at the moment. We've got a statement which you can see on the screen at the moment. Very generic, obviously, but we're obviously monitoring the situation as and when every time the government makes an announcement. Just for information from our side, everybody has been asked to work from home unless it's completely essential. Some of the offices and floors within offices have been closed down within Oracle. However, we obviously have a continuity plan in place to ensure that we run and continue these services as much as possible. So we've already always had this in place for such events as coronavirus, and this is the risk management resiliency program. which I've just taken elements of it. This is a document that we can send out to everybody after this presentation, and it just gives an idea of how we manage in such crises as this, how we keep everything running, how essential staff can still work from home, how we still continue to deliver support, certainly around services such as cloud-based services where we have to keep obviously the data centers up and running. All of this information is provided to ensure that as much as possible we keep it to business as usual. So this is more about reassurance, I think, to make sure that you're all aware that we do have these steps in place, as I'm sure you would expect, so for such a large organization. And if you do need to pass this documentation on, I have been asked for it from a number of you directly, so that you can ensure that you're covered, certainly by the procurement teams and contracting teams. Please, as I said, you can email me directly, or ideally I'll forward this to the team at OUG, and they can attach any relevant documents as part of this presentation. We've also got an FAQs page as well. So here's another link that we can send out to you. It was actually posted I think last week on my LinkedIn page as well. So it's the latest post that I've got if you want to get access to it straight away. But it's a number of frequently asked questions around, you know, how again do we manage this process? And if you do have any other questions or anything which you feel are not covered within this, then please contact Deano and I directly, and we'll pass that on to the relevant people internally and try and get back to you as and when we can. Deano, can I pass you on with regards to this slide?
Yeah. Perfect. I think it's, yeah, just to add to that, you know, it goes without saying that as an organisation, we're here to help. We're a pretty large organisation, which means that we've got a lot of resources. So no matter how obscure you think the ask might be, do make it, because, you know, the word is sort of overused at the moment, but these are genuinely unprecedented times. So if you think there's something that we can help with, then do let us know. And obviously Nigel and I can sort of try and find resources then to help. So we wanted to put together some things for our customers to help them through these times. And obviously our number one priority as an organisation at the moment is to ensure the health, safety and well-being of our own employees, but also the employees of our customers, their partners and their stakeholders. And so to that end, we've got a couple of initiatives running for our HCM cloud customers. The first one is an offer. And that is that we are giving away our health and safety cloud service for customers that are live on core HCM for free for the next 12 months at least, or however long this virus and this epidemic is with us. For those not familiar with the functionality, to simplify it massively, it allows organizations to do two things. One, for employees to report concerns related to health and safety, and then two, for organizations to respond in a structured way. So for example, from a mobile device, it would allow employees to do things such as, you know, reporting low stock of personal protective equipment. If they wanted to log concerns about the cleanliness of a surface in a facility that they've been in, or if a manager wanted to make requests on behalf of their team for dedicated training related to safety in regard to the virus, or if there was a piece of cleaning equipment that had been left unattended and was used, for example, or empty hand sanitizers in the bathrooms, anything like that. It's a structured way for employees to be able to report those kind of concerns. And then on the other side, it allows HR professionals, health and safety professionals to respond to those events. So structured way to notify either your entire employee workforce or segments of your employee workforce who might have been impacted by an incident that's been reported. It allows structured communications to go out to local teams who you might need to take action based on a report. And it obviously allows you to sort of track the investigations of those reports through from start to finish. And so how it works in reality is we've put together an implementation guide, which we can send to the team here that they can circulate after this call, which is a resource guide which will help you if you do want to sort of turn it on in your environment and get it up and running. We'll also, throughout this month and all throughout April, all the way to the end of April, be running office hours. So online webinars around how to set up the Health and Safety Cloud service if you want to join those. And obviously we have your CSM community and your account management community on hand to help as well. We obviously appreciate that HR professionals are probably, well, everyone is extremely busy at the moment, right? But HR professionals in general. So the idea of turning on and configuring a new module might just be totally out of scope at the moment, because quite rightly, you know, you're focusing on employee and student care. So the other thing that we've done is we've created a resource center on Customer Connect. So this is aimed mainly at our cloud customers, but could also be used by on-premise customers, because it's going to be a resource that's updated regularly with help, advice and ideas related to the virus. So specifically for HCM cloud customers, we're going to be doing things like making reporting attributes available on there. So if you wanted to download, I just had a look and there's a new report on there if you wanted to put it into your environment to identify all the employees in your workforce that are over the age of 70, for example, so high risk group. I know later on in the week we're going to be expanding that reporting out for things like any employees that have future maternity leave booked, again, because we know that's a high-risk group of individuals. And we'll be adding tips in there as well, like how to communicate to your workforce through the newsfeed UI. But we'll also be sharing ideas as well that could be applicable to our on-premise customers as well. So around kind of reports that you might want to be running and considerations that you might want to be making at the moment. And then finally, for our EBS and for our PeopleSoft customers, our dev and support organization have committed to helping resolve new issues as a priority that have arisen as a result of the impact of COVID-19. So one of the examples that I've been given speaking to that team there, we were recently helping a customer access iProcurement from their DMZ, because they hadn't had to give people access to procurement remotely before, and now they needed to, so we helped them resolve that as a priority. So that kind of stuff will be uploaded on My Oracle Support as well. So on Customer Connect and My Oracle Support, filter and search for COVID-19, and you'll see that we are adding more and more resources as days go by to help customers. That's me, Nigel, if you want to jump onto the next slide.
Yeah. So before we move on, are there any questions on what we've gone over at the moment? I appreciate it's sometimes a little bit difficult to type these in chat, so if there are any coming in, please let us know, and we'll try and answer them straight away or take them on board.
It's Alexandra here. I've not seen any questions come through just yet.
Okay.
If anyone's got one of them, as Nigel said, please do type them in.
Okay, so
in case people are, it's definitely Oracle giving something away for
also called market-driven support, and this is offered by Advanced Customer Services. Currently, this is only valid for 12 months, but they have said that they will take a view on that further on down the line. So maybe June, July, depending on how many people are still on 12.1.3, about whether they would take that service to 2023. There will be a sort of sliding scale pricing banded cost, so please get in touch with us if you wanted to get an idea of what this would cost. I know this is not for the majority of people here, because most people are either on 12.2 or have moved to Oracle Cloud, but there are still some significant number of universities who are still on 12.1.3 and are currently reviewing or have made the decision to move to 12.2. And this obviously then is a backstop should the project take longer than anticipated. ACS support will cover all P1 and P2 support tickets as standard, and any existing statutory elements as well, they will continue to support. So as I said, if this is of interest based on your current projects that are going on, then please let us know, and we can provide more information to you directly, and I can pass you on to one of my colleagues, Mark Bateman, who works for in the ACS department and has a lot more information on this. So I'm not expecting you to read all of this, but we also do have supporting documentation as well on what this service provides. And again, I've just lifted some bullet points on what actually that means. We'll attach this slide as well, or this pack to after the presentation, so you can have more detail on what this actually delivers. I think one of the things that possibly was out in the market about that this service would only provide P1 support. It actually is P1 and P2. So I just wanted to make that clear that there are the two levels of support that it still covers for those who are relevant and need this service. Just briefly moving on to, sorry, I've got Oracle Open Work. It should be Oracle Open World in London. Some of you would have attended those. Unfortunately, Deano and I couldn't make this, so you probably got a better idea of how it went than us. So then, obviously, we had a lot of feedback from customers and colleagues alike. Very well attended. Lots of HE specific attendees as well, which is always good to see. And many sessions, which I know a lot of you also attended. Lots of feedback we've had already from this, and I'd welcome your feedback on here today of how we can improve this further. We've understood that some of the formats worked really well. So, for example, the sessions where you had the headphones and lots of information was passed on that way, because you had different sessions that you could go to. Downside was that you had to plonk yourself in a seat to ensure that you had some headphones, and maybe have to go through some sessions to make sure that you're already sitting down and ready for the one that you wanted to see. So whilst we had that information last year, we certainly improved the number of headsets that we had, but obviously it still wasn't enough. So that's been taken on board. We've had feedback about the noise levels for certain areas was just a bit too much and too noisy. Couldn't quite hear people, so we're again trying to address that for the next sessions, and also the positioning of having to get around the organisation. For the application side, they were put out to one side and felt it was away from the event. So it is, as you can imagine, with that number of attendees, quite difficult to keep everybody happy and organise it. But we do take your comments on board. So I think, please, if you could let us know, for those that did attend the event, and what you thought of it, we'll keep feeding these back. I think on the whole, it was very positive and very well received, and a very good way of meeting with colleagues, meeting with other organisations who are using the same systems, and understanding how they work in your sector, but also sort of widen the horizons a bit about how other sectors use our products as well. So just moving on, again, since we last met, some new customers. Now, obviously, most of you will be aware of Heriot Watt, and I know some of them are on the call this morning. They've been a long-standing eBiz customer for 12, 13 years plus, and they've been reviewing what to do for some time. Well, they actually contracted in November last year, and they're going for ERP, planning and budgeting, which is the EPM solution, HCM, and CX as well, and CX CRM, which is engagement cloud, which is basically going to be a front end for staff, so like a triage front end that allows staff to log in and add their queries through a help desk, and these will be fielded out as the project gets rolled out. So we're obviously very happy to have them on board. They've gone through the customer to cloud process, so that obviously comes with its benefits of additional support, and being able to still use the existing eBiz solution and implement it at the same time at a reduced cost. So feel free to reach out to any Heriot Watt colleagues, and we'll assist where we can. Deano, I think you're going to talk about the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. Just waiting for the slide to come up. Okay, so Northumbria University. So the ink isn't actually dry on this one yet, but they have been advertising for program director roles specifically for Oracle Cloud applications. So I think the cat is well and truly out the bag. They were an SAP on-prem customer for both HR, finance, and payroll. And they were one of those customers that were being pushed into an upgrade by SAP. It was a significant cost for the upgrade. So as a result of that, they decided to go out to market and see what it was about. So sort of 18-month or so process from sort of soft market engagement down to a short list of 3. So that short list ended up being us, Workday, and Unit 4. We were selected as preferred, I think, at the end of January on the software side of things. They've still got some work to do in relation to the SI partner selection. But again, this is a cross-line of business one, so they're going Oracle ERP, EPM, HCM, and HCM also includes payroll for this customer as well. I think that's us, isn't that, Nigel?
Oh, yeah, sorry, I just lost you there, Deano. I wasn't sure if everybody else did, but
yeah, no, I'd finished. Yeah.
Okay. So just to finish, we're just giving you an idea of again the latest footprint of all the cloud customers that we have at the moment. Obviously, all of them are in various different states of who's doing what and where they are live or where they're being implemented. So that was just an update on where we are. And based on our time slot, that's it from us. If you've got any questions or anything, then as I said, please put them through the chat and we'll answer them accordingly.
I still can't hear you, Alexandra.
So sorry about that.
I see you now, just not hear you. I don't know if that's just me.
Can everyone hear me now? Sorry, I've lost. Can you hear me now, Deano?
Can now.
Excellent. So sorry about that. I lost connection briefly for a moment then.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can have you all back. Thank you so much for that, Nigel and Deano. Because of time constraints, we're going to move on to our next presenters, which are Graham Spicer from SplashBI, and he'll be delivering the session SplashBI Solutions Helping Higher Education. So I'm just going to hand over the control to you now, Graham.
Thank you. Can you all hear me okay, and can you see my screen?
I can hear you, Graham, and I can see your screen.
Yes.
Excellent.
And yes.
Let's assume everybody else can then, that's good. Thank you everybody for the opportunity. I'm joined by my colleague Rishab McCloy. Rishab's just here in case I have any technical questions that I can't answer. It's a long time since I last presented to the HESIG as they were then, many years ago. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to do this. I don't really want to do a sales pitch. We have 35 minutes. We didn't know we were going to be doing this until yesterday. So it is sales pitch slides, but what I'm going to do is just show you a few slides at the beginning, and then I'd like to make it interactive. So if you have questions as we go, either use the hand raise button, or put it onto chat, and Alexander will be able to unmute you and connect to me, and we can have a dialogue and see if we can keep this interactive. We have our new tagline, as you will see in the fairly top left-hand corner there, business as unusual, which it is at this time. Perhaps though not so much for us, because at SplashBI for the last 20 years, we've very much operated a remote business. So all of our software implementation, installation, migration, training, support, everything is done remotely off-site. We can supplement that with some on-site services, but the bulk of it is done off-site. So not too big a change for our business model. And before I start, I hope you all and your families are all safe and well, and that you keep safe throughout this period as well. So moving on. So as it says on the top right there, please ask questions. Feel free to interrupt and pass comment. If I see the numbers drop dramatically, then I'll know that quite a few people aren't perhaps wanting to listen to what we have to say. That's fair enough. Introductions, done those. We'll briefly talk about our customers in HE space and our SplashBI solutions, and then I can go into detail if anybody wants to know. If people don't, then you may find that you'll catch up a fair bit of time this morning on our slot. So just briefly, SplashBI, some of you will know of us, some of you probably don't. The product and the company are both SplashBI, which can be confusing at times, but SplashBI as a product is a self-service BI platform. It can do everything that Power BI, Click, OAC, OAS, other BI platforms can do, but the fundamental difference with us as a company is that we offer pre-packaged solutions, and we offer a lot because it's our background in the Oracle space. So we have Splash EBS, which is an Oracle EBS reporting and analytics solution. We have Splash OC, which does the same on cloud. You can combine those so as you can bring data from both data sources into single reports and single dashboards. Those of you that still have Discoverer, we have a Discoverer migration utility that comes free alongside Splash EBS. And then we have functional products like Splash HR, Splash GL, Splash CRM. Splash HR is workforce and people analytics, works across any platform. So if, for example, you have Oracle Cloud HCM, Oracle EBS payroll, Taleo recruitment, and something else running in Kronos, you could work across all those platforms and do things like flight risk assessment. So it will analyze the data of half of or 60% of the people that have left you in the last 5 or 10 years, depending on your historic data. Work out an algorithm, fine tune the algorithm based on the other 40% and apply it to your current workforce and allow you to work out who is potentially all of these are powered by SplashBI, and if we get to the slide later, I'll explain to you why that is important. So I seem to have lost my customer slides, and I'm not sure why that has happened. So if you could bear with me a minute, I think I might have even uploaded the wrong slide deck. So I do apologise. More haste, less speed this morning. Should have picked that up straight away, shouldn't I? There we go, that's better. Right, so these are some of our HE customers. This is where I should have started. I do apologise. I know this is being recorded, so I'll be looking like an idiot for posterity now, won't I? Never mind. These are some of our customers in the HE and education space. And University of Oxford, been a customer of ours now for 8 or 9 years. Edge Hill University, more recent. They are the only 2 universities we have customers in the UK, both using our solutions for very, very different areas of their business, which I'll explain to you in a minute. The others are all based around the US, but some quite well-known universities in there as well. So Edge Hill University had a business problem last year where they were still using Discoverer, but they were using it against a third-party student administration Oracle database, and they wanted to continue with their reports. They didn't want to change to the reporting application that came with the solution because they thought that would be too difficult, too much effort to train all their customers, users, etc. So we conducted a proof of concept with them. They are now in the midst of training and in the midst of migrating their Discoverer workbooks, and they will go live with SplashBI reporting against the third-party student administration data. So SplashBI will work, and the Discoverer migration utility will work against any Oracle data source. Doesn't have to be EBS, doesn't have to be cloud, doesn't have to be an application. It can be a database. And we have quite a few customers around the world, customers like Baillie Gifford Financial Services in Scotland. Probably our biggest user of SplashBI for Discoverer migration against Oracle is the German police, who are actually using it to report on a database of convicted criminals. Not HE, but just an example of the use. And then we have University of Oxford. As I said, Oxford has been a customer of ours for quite some time now, but initially when they became a customer, they purchased our original product, which was called EIS Express, which some of you may well know about, and it was purely a EBS reporting tool. Did nothing else but report against eBusiness Suite. We've superseded that now some 4 years ago, and we're gradually encouraging our customers to move from Express to SplashBI and the SplashBI solutions. And Oxford, we kicked off the migration project on the 1st of February, and we're due to finish before around about the end of May, mid-June, before their year end, so as they can parallel run everything in the year end. Their month end starts in their schools, faculties, departments and academic units, and all the reconciliations are done centrally through their financial services department, and it's all done through a monthly dashboard, which used to be done in Excel and is now done in SplashBI. All of the consolidation by central finance results in about 189 standard reports being run every month, together with about 30 to 40 financial statements, which used to be run out of Oracle Financial Statement Generator and are now also run out of SplashBI. And they also now are able to do a lot of analytics on that data. They also, being researched, do a lot of reporting on projects, and they have a projects data mart, which includes reporting to academics on the management of research projects, and all of their asset management is centrally controlled but reported to departments through SplashBI. And they also use the solution for their financial assurance to enable them to check that departments are doing what they should be doing with segregation of duty regulations, etc. There's everything like that. So that's talking to you about what our 2 university customers in the UK are currently doing. I'll skip this slide because I've already done that one. So does anybody have anything particular they'd like to ask about EBS, Discoverer migration, or Oracle Cloud? If not, I will just continue through the slides until I run out of time. I can't see any chat. Any hands being raised?
I can't see any at the moment.
Nope.
But if anyone does have anything to ask, please, like Graham said, do raise your hand.
Okay, right. I will crack on with this. I'm not going to read through all the slides because there are too many and it'll take too long, but just to give you an idea, those of you that are still using EBS, what Splash EBS does for reporting against eBusiness Suite. So it comes with around about 1,400 pre-built reports across all of the modules: HCM, financial, supply chain, manufacturing, projects, CRM and EAM. And you'll see underneath each of the modules, each of the applications, the individual modules that we have reports for. And our standard reports go back as far as 11.5, run on 12.1, and are now certified to run on 12.2.9, and against all databases from 8 through to 19C. So that's what we do with the reporting. We also have a standard set of dashboards, one for each of these modules at the moment. That's being increased as we speak. Each dashboard has a number of sub-dashboard tabs and a number of charts. And again, this is supported on the same versions of eBusiness Suite. Why do we think Splash EBS meets 100% of people's reporting requirements? It honors EBS responsibility security. It honors user authentication. It comes with the pre-built reports and dashboards, as you've just seen. It understands descriptive flex fields, key flex fields, EITs and UDAs. So most people with EBS have a lot of memories, a lot of customizations, a lot of DFS and KFS, and it's important that your reporting tool is able to report on those without any difficulty.
Sorry,
it has an
Graham.
Excel plugin.
Sorry, I just wanted to interrupt to let you know that you have got a question now.
Okay.
So
right.
I've been asked, do you support PeopleSoft Campus solution as well?
Yes, we do. Yes, so we can connect to anything that runs on any Oracle database, any application, and we can connect to PeopleSoft and JD Edwards. And we also have other non-Oracle products that we can connect to as well. Yes, we do.
Lovely, thank you, Graham.
Okay. Yep, so Excel plugin and mobile. So SplashBI can be used as an HTML solution, or it can be used as an Excel solution. All of the security and controls are present within Excel. It controls data integrity in the same way as the HTML solution does all of the same functionality, and it's exactly the same functionality on mobile, and those are not separate products. They're included in the key product. There's no additional pricing. The product also comes with a really powerful 4 terabyte in-memory analytics database. It's EBS real-time. You can report from all your data sources. It connects to Oracle Cloud. It supports GL Connect and Splash GL. It can be done as single node or multi-node, and all your reporting and dashboards can have drill downs. Moving on swiftly, with 15 minutes to go. So talking about Discover and migration, for those of you that have got it, over the years, we've seen all of our customers will have invested combined millions of pounds, dollars, euros across thousands of active workbooks. We've actually seen one customer with 70,000 active Discover workbooks across multiple business areas and across business application reporting. And you've also put a lot of investment in your staff by way of training. And what you don't necessarily want to do is throw all that away. And our Discover and migration utility allows you to do that. It works quite uniquely, and it's a utility that you can run yourselves, or you can employ us to run it as a offshore activity for you, or most of our customers do a hybrid. We'll say, excuse me now if you hear a lot of banging coming over my microphone, but we're having scaffolding erected on our house for someone to remove the roof next week if they're allowed to. So I apologize for that in advance. And yes, so most of our customers go for the hybrid approach, where they ask us to do the complex workbooks for them, or the first 10, and then they do the rest themselves. and it's done. All of these little issues are things that people that try to replicate Discoverer workbooks find. So you can't just necessarily take the SQL code, strip it back, put it into a new reporting tool and run all the reports, because you will get tripped up by some of these things that are on the list here. Our migration utility supports all of these, and the way it works, if I've got the right slide next, is that it will take everything that you have in Discoverer, the entire estate, an EUL will become a SplashBI business area, business area will become a domain, a folder becomes a table, joins are joins, item classes are LOVs, etc. And you're able to maintain your Discoverer estate 100% intact. We've done this now. We estimate we have probably migrated close on to 170, 180,000 workbooks for our customers over the last 2 to 3 years. And in the past 3 to 6 months, we have seen a huge uptake in this, because where people are being encouraged to upgrade to EBS 12.2 and are still using Discoverer, with Discoverer being into sustaining support and no longer being actively supported, if you do an upgrade and you hit a problem, you will have a major issue with not being able to run reports. It's not common across everybody using Discoverer, and it seems to be not a particular combination of operating systems or versions of software that cause it. It just happens, and we've had a situation where users sitting next to each other running exactly the same applications, running the same reports. For one user it falls over, and for another user it doesn't. So it's just something that we're seeing more people taking into consideration now. Those of you that are on Oracle Cloud or considering Oracle Cloud, we also have our Oracle Cloud Connector, which provides all of the same functionality in as EBS Connector does, and a little bit more. So some of you that have been using cloud for a while, for HCM or ERP maybe, may have noticed that there are certain bits of data, and I'll use HCM as an example here, that you cannot view in your OTBI reports and that you cannot access on your OCI cloud infrastructure. Give you an example, it would be the way that you approve all of your HCM processes. So the approvals tables cannot be viewed and cannot be reported upon. The way our connector works is that it will do an intermittent download of all of the data, every piece of data that sits in your cloud application, even those that you can't see yourselves when it comes to reporting. It's kept in a Oracle warehouse that we maintain for you as part of the application, whether that's on cloud, on premise, it can be a hybrid, it doesn't matter. And then SplashOC allows you via SplashBI to report against all of the data. And if, like some customers we know, you have ERP still running in eBusiness Suite, HCM running on cloud, Taleo running on cloud, and perhaps a non-Oracle CRM like Salesforce, then you're able to combine all of that data into a single reporting platform with all of the security taken account of. Seem to be stuck, so I'm not going to spend any time talking about this, but this is the justification slide that we have. It covers a couple of things I've just said about why people are looking at third-party products now for Oracle Cloud reporting. This is some of the stuff that we can provide through the cloud reporting tool that we have that isn't available in OTBI and OAC and OAS at the moment. And this is the pre-built content that we have for Oracle Cloud. So just as we had for Oracle EBS, we have quite a substantial amount of pre-built content available. across the different modules. SplashGL, and I'm going to speed up now. This is in use at University of Oxford, and as you can see, it's basically access to live data for your general ledger users. It does trial balance, it will do subledger analysis, allow you to upload journals, honours data security, convert financial statement generated reports out of Oracle, understands hierarchies, it lets you do reconciliation, etc. Everything within an Excel front end, and that links to SplashBI at the same time.
Hi Graham, sorry
Yo.
again, we've got a question come in.
Okay, thank you.
So somebody would like to know, for the cloud connector, are reports run in an application or Excel?
It can be both. So you can do either, again, exactly the same as you can do with Splash EBS. So it has what we call Excel Connect. It has our Excel front end. So it enables users to use that as the front end, and exactly the same with mobile as well. So it's exactly the same functionality. The data is obviously slightly different as to where it's coming from. You don't have so much by way of customizations. But it gives you the ability to run your reports in HTML or run your reports in Excel. Hope that answers the question.
Great, thank you for that, Graham.
Okay, thank you. Splash HR, going to really rush through this now because I think I've got 2 minutes left or 3 minutes left. Is that right, Alexander?
So you've got until 5 to, so you've got about 7 minutes, lovely, according to my clock.
Okay, thank you. Right, thank you. So Splash HR is all about people analytics, workforce analytics, identifying high-performing employees at risk of exit, creating a business case for HR intervention, making better data-driven decisions, and transforming HR from operational to tactical. We do actually have a webinar going on this week, tomorrow, about COVID-19 and the impact that it has on HR. If anybody is interested, if you flag up a question or let Alexandra know, I'll be able to send you the link to that at some point later today. These slides will be made available on the UKOUG website, by the way. Some examples of what Splash HR looks like. So the executive dashboard. Again, all of this, as you can see in the left-hand corner there, is powered by SplashBI, and this can be combined with your EBS and your OC reporting as well. The headcount dashboard, turnover dashboard, and absence analysis. Splash HR comes with 250 pre-built KPIs on around about 45 to 50 pre-built dashboards, and as I said, it links to virtually any data source at the moment. And then we have Splash CRM, which does full funnel analytics. So from the point you start your marketing to the point you're delivering, supporting, upselling, and hopefully retaining your customer, it will allow you to look at your awareness, your interest, your engagement, and your acquisition. And again, some examples of how this works. So that's the opening page for our Splash CRM application, with the ability to drill down on each of those little waving bottles there. That's the Chief Marketing Officer dashboard. We actually use this application internally. It's used by both our CEO and CMO to look at the impact of what we do. This is our visitors engagement dashboard. And now, briefly, as I have enough time, I said earlier I'd mentioned to you why prepackaged analytics are so powerful at the moment. Gartner are telling everybody that prepackaged analytics are the way to go. The first two blue-headed columns are produced out of Gartner's review that they did last year. The third column we've added ourselves. But basically, we are seeing lots of people when it comes to replacing Discoverer or reporting against eBusiness Suite or reporting against Oracle Cloud, where customers feel they need additional third-party reporting and analytical capabilities, going to products like Power BI, Tableau, Click, looking at generic BI platforms. And the great thing about a generic BI platform is that it's easy to customize, it's easy to differentiate what you're doing, and the solution quality is normally really, really good, and ease of use can be quite good. However, time to solution, anything from 9 months to 3 years to develop something similar to our Splash EBS solution. Not cost effective, huge learning curve for your IT department unless they've already got the product, and for your users. Really, really difficult to integrate with your business process, and domain contextualization is almost non-existent. So Gartner started talking last year about packaged applications in analytics, and they found that whilst ease of use, time to solution, cost effectiveness, learning curve, business process integration and domain contextualization were all that much better, actually it reversed the generic BI platform grid upside down, because customizability is not that easy. It's the 80-20 rule. Differentiation is not that easy, and sometimes the solution quality isn't that great. And whereas you don't need a huge IT project, you probably need to engage the packaged analytic application provider for 3-6 months and then get them back every time you want to make changes. Because we're combining a prepackaged application sitting on top of our own proprietary BI platform, we believe that all of those criteria we qualify with happy green smiley faces. We can't prove that to you. We can if you run a proof of concept or a trial, which are available to run on premise and on cloud. Those can be made available to you, and we think you would then agree that that is the case. So it's always a case of build versus buy. To give you an example, when we talk about time to solution and cost effectiveness, the average SplashBI project from start to finish takes about 2 to 3 months. It takes 10 days to do the training and to do the software implementation and installation, and that's all you get charged for. There's nothing else after that, unless you want us to build custom reports or do the migration for you, but you can do that all yourselves. And we have a lot of customers that can testify to that fact. Just quickly, why we believe we're all green smiley faces. So for every database and for most ERPs and applications, cloud applications, we already have the built-in data connectors in place. We have a common built-in data model that resides across all of our solutions and that is supported by SplashBI. All of our solutions come with pre-built metrics, KPIs, which reduces the data science effort. They all come with pre-built reports, charts, and dashboards, which reduces the build effort. They all come with free updates to content. If you subscribe to our content, you don't have to subscribe to our content. You can build your own, but if you do, then it's up to us to maintain that in line with Oracle EBS or Oracle Cloud. And more importantly, it understands the security. It understands roles, responsibilities, single sign-on, and it has Active Directory synchronization. And I do believe that brings me to the end, so I won't talk about the benefits slide. We do have a SplashBI community portal that we can give you access to, which will allow you to look at our webinars and videos and training material and talk to customers. Whew. And that's me done. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Graham. That was bang on time, I make it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for joining us to deliver that session for us. Our next session is going to be delivered by James Anthony of Inoapps. The session today is not ready for Student Cloud and what to do in the meantime. So I'm just going to hand this over to you now, James.
Thank you. Just confirm you can hear me all right.
I can hear you okay there, James.
So, come on. Hopefully that is showing now for everybody. So thank you very much. Just echoing what I guess all the presenters have said before me, certainly. So this time, hope everybody's well and families are well and all that kind of stuff, and may you stay safe. So yeah, so I'm going to change things slightly. I'm going to talk much more about technology and infrastructure. That's my bag, that's my background, that's where I come from, and how we are helping customers who perhaps aren't yet ready to go to a SaaS solution or student cloud, and what we can do in the meantime as well. So give you some ideas of some of the things that I think about when I'm doing any projects at the moment, given the fact that the world has, and it's changed for different reasons right now, but it's very much changed around the technology. You know, that exponential curve of technology adoption is increasing faster and faster. So I know some of my marketing colleagues are on, so I have to show the obligatory marketing slide that talks about who Inoapps are and what we are and the global presence. And actually, one of the nice things has been, whilst nobody would perhaps want the circumstance we found it in, testing the fact that we are a distributed worldwide remote business and all our people can actually go and work from home. Broadband challenge is accepted. I think we've done admirably well as an organisation to work around that. So what are some of the things I'm going to talk about today? Well, we're going to talk about the different aspects of cloud we can use, so perhaps infrastructure as a service, and how, as we go through that, things like patching and upgrading, interfaces are impacted by that, what we need to think around business as usual, and support as well, and considerations around maximizing our journey as we do this. And I'll give you some screenshots and some of the things I talk about, what timelines and activity might be. So jumping straight in, and I think most people are probably pretty familiar with this these days, that there are kind of three layers of the cloud. We have the SaaS solution, which would be student cloud, where everything is provided by the cloud provider, and we just are consumers of this. I've used a different example of it, such as Salesforce, but it could be Hotmail or whatever it is, and we've all used those in our everyday lives, I guess, these days. There's platform as a service, which is kind of, for me, the interesting area. I'm going to come back to that at the end, where we're then just responsible for sort of the application code that sits on top of it. And then there's infrastructure as a service, which is where I'm going to start the journey we're talking about here, where really the analogy would be we're just choosing what flavor hardware and disks we want. Now, there's some massive advantages to it in the way we choose it and consume it, but that's really the analogy I like to put on it. And clearly, as we go through the Oracle model, we have multiple, wherever we are in our journey to cloud. If you do consider, and people do, but you don't have to have that view of the world, if you do consider the end goal is full migration to a SaaS solution such as Student Cloud, clearly there are steps in between those as well. So if you've got something like an on-prem EBS environment, we can move that to IaaS, or we can move portions of it to IaaS, DR, for instance. And we can look at things like gaining efficiencies. We can clearly look at as well things like optimization of cost, and whether having it running in somebody else's data center gives us a green agenda tick, because we're actually reducing the CO2 emissions compared to old and aging kit. We know that for a lot of people who've got big old servers, they are much more energy hungry for the outputs we need than more modern servers. That's Moore's law, that's what it does as well. Or we can just choose to extend the SaaS or the on-premise solutions we have with those PaaS options. I'm going to talk about a few of those as we go through. But I'm going to focus on that bottom right one at the moment, the replatforming to IaaS. So why is replatforming to infrastructure as a service? So picking it up and moving it to a cloud vendor of your choice. I know our Oracle colleagues are still on here, and we, as an Oracle Platinum partner, know there are some very good reasons why Oracle runs better on Oracle Cloud, but we also are respectful of the fact that customers themselves might have a preferred cloud vendor in place. Most of what I talk about here, you'll be able to do with different cloud vendors. I would suggest to say we can certainly help organizations with a choice of cloud vendors, because we do believe Oracle runs better on Oracle, but and it's a technical bake-off, and we can fight that battle for you and with you as you need to. So why is just replatforming to IaaS beneficial? Well, as it says here, it's the software you're already familiar with and your users are familiar with. And people historically don't like change, and I think that's true at any time. So keeping the same interface users have got and the same technology they're used to, moving that into a more agile, more cost-effective, and all the things I'll talk about shortly, environment is clearly going to provide some benefits while keeping users familiar. Customizations remain in place. We can shift any integrations we've got, and you already own it. I mean, that is a key thing. The commercials are always key in any discussion. I did like what Deano said, Oracle giving something away for free. That is something very rare, I think. So Oracle are a commercial entity, like you would expect. So you already own it. And because you're familiar with it and you're familiar with the management and support of it, actually we can often do these replatformings to IaaS in a very rapid fashion. These aren't long drawn out projects. They are relatively quick projects because the technology is well understood, the testing paths are well understood, the users understand what they're doing, and there's some things I'm going to show you that I think we can do once we do those migrations that allow us to prove the success of those migrations, and that's obviously a very important factor. So why else replatform? Well, clearly there's cost reasons. Now, I'm going to be slightly controversial in some ways here, but for many people, I think cloud probably will reduce their IT run costs, but not in the way perhaps people would have looked at this 5 or 10 years ago when internal IT was seen as being quite expensive. I think these days a well-run data center, well optimized with good commercials in place with hardware vendors, over a period, and if you project a hardware refresh cycle out, certainly out over 4 to 5 years, I would suspect cloud economics or the reasons to migrate to cloud should not be purely economical. Not certainly based on how much does it cost for a CPU hour and some storage, because whilst I said previously, I think maybe 5 or 6 years ago, internal IT was quite an expensive way to run it. The cloud has kept internal IT and hardware vendors honest, if you want to call it that, and reduced the cost of those platforms. So many people will find that if they do that projection and just look at it on CPU hours and how much they cost, cloud might not be the cheapest option, but there are other operational reasons for it. So we know the reasons why cloud can potentially be cheaper. You know, they buy at scale and can pass that on. Larger organizations buy at scale and are getting some of those benefits as well. Clearly, we only pay for what we use. And things like DR can become what we term a pilot-like model. So we can have DR, especially for things like database scale, right down and then scale them up as we, or if we ever do have to invoke DR as well. But as I say, personally, I think any decision to move to cloud-based purely on the cost of the underlying hardware is probably missing the bigger trick. What you do have are the benefits around things like this, where we have no more hardware refresh cycles. Whether we like it or not, going through a procurement process for refreshing hardware every 3, 4, 5 years does have a cost. It has a cost of the procurement cycle itself, but also the evaluation, choosing it, all those meetings with vendors, all of those things as well. So we can get away from that and those sizing meetings we have to have. But for me, that bottom one, and that's why it's in a slightly different color, is the benefit. I genuinely believe, having done a lot of cloud migrations, that the operational cost benefit is where people will see the benefits of cloud. So what sort of operational benefits and operational reasons might we see? Well, efficiencies. You know, when we go to a cloud platform, whatever that looks like, we suddenly start to have consistency and standardization. And some of that comes from just the abstraction of this server isn't a 380 generation 5, and this is a 380 generation 7, and therefore I've got to hold spares, and the management of the underlying platform slightly different. That's totally abstracted. But above that, as we move to these new platforms, we start to think often, and that's one of the key benefits I've seen with cloud migrations, that people think about what they're going to do. That systems we have on premises, a lot of those have grown organically, whether we like it or not, over time. And things have changed. What we deployed 5 years ago, we certainly don't deploy in the same way today. So actually moving allows us to change things and put that consistency in place. We have the elimination of unused capacity. So I talk to a lot of customers where they want to have a production and a DR, classic scenario in the cloud. And what they do is they would buy capacity ready for invocation of DR? Well, we don't need to in the cloud, because our cloud provider, so let's say it's Oracle, in Oracle Cloud, they have hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, whatever it may be, of servers ready for us to use if we have to invoke DR in another region with them, for instance. So we don't have to buy that capacity. We can get rid of things like tapes inside the cloud. Clearly, you can't load tapes into the cloud. So we use technologies like object storage, and that whole management of tapes and the procurement of tapes disappears as well. And there's big efficiencies around that as well. Cloud for me is these next sort of 3 or 4 things, though, I'm going to talk about. That's where I think as you use more and more cloud technologies, the benefits really start to come in. So the automation, whether that's moving Oracle e-Business Suite into the cloud and using the Cloud Manager for Oracle e-Business Suite to allow you to automate the process of cloning, and cloning in a consistent pattern from your production to your non-production environments. That's a really key task that we can now automate. Standing up new environments, cloning databases, whatever else it may be, or the automation of just building servers. Elasticity and surge capacity. Now, I know for many people, the big challenge here was often around licensing, and that's clearly an opportunity we have as we move to cloud to look at a license included versus a buy licenses and take them to the cloud. But that's something that's key to everybody at the moment. I know I can't remember who it was, one of the previous presenters, I think it was Nigel, actually said, he was in the car because he was getting away from the kids at home. My kids are at home too. And the system they use for online learning, I won't name it because I think most of the platforms experience just couldn't hold up when everybody went online on Monday this week when the kids were first off school, and it collapsed under the weight. Now, I'm not picking on them because I think nobody could imagine what we're going through right now. But the cloud gives us the ability to do that elasticity and that surge capacity. And nobody wants to buy that on premises and do it. And if you look even at something like the Oracle database now, we can use Oracle database, whether that's Oracle Exadata or whether that's just a plain old Oracle database running in a VM, and we can add CPUs to it dynamically now. Previously, you might not have been able to do that on the VMs, but about 2 or 3 weeks ago, Oracle released the functionality to allow you just to add CPUs. So if we have a surge, we don't have to buy licenses for an entire period. At a retailer, it's always going to be Christmas. But right now, this is the process we're talking about and going through with an unexpected pandemic coming on. But that could be the Freshers Week or whatever else it may be. We can go and buy surge capacity just for the period we need it. The agility, cloud certainly gives us a massive amount of agility. I talk about the agility here in taking clones, but it could just be standing up a proof of concept for a period of time without having to go and procure services. The virtualization took a lot of that took a lot of that away from the initial process we used to go through years back of having to buy hardware. But those 3 things for me really do give a huge benefit if we look at cloud. And finally, security. Now, that often seems a strange thing to say when we go to the cloud because we are moving stuff out of our environment and we're putting it in somebody else's environment. And there's been lots of horror stories about people who put stuff in the cloud and the data's got hacked and it was potentially the cloud provider's fault. I would argue that most of those cases, people have deployed something badly to the cloud with known holes in it, and therefore they were getting exploited. For me, and one of the things we go through with a lot of our customers, we talk about when you move your things anywhere, whether that's the cloud or you're just re-implementing on premises, think about security all over again and what you can do differently. And there are things in the cloud we can take advantage of, and I've listed a couple here that the cloud vendors put in place that we might not have been able to buy or consume ourselves in the past for one or another reasons. Things like web application firewalls. So unlike a normal firewall that just looks at traffic, they are very smart. I'm doing them a disservice in that thing, but they are looking at IP traffic as it comes past and making decisions on that traffic as to whether it's nefarious or whether it's legitimate. The web application firewall is exactly what it says. It's a firewall that deals with web traffic and looks at where the users are coming from. It takes into account things like plausible velocity. So can that user have just moved from one location in the world to another location in the world that quickly? Are we getting lots of attempts coming in from Eastern Europe, for instance, to try different things. The WordPress login site's a classic one we often see when people are trying to get hacked, and we'll block those based on that. And things like security event insight managers, or event incident managers, sorry, SEMS, SIMs, SEIMs, whatever your preferred acronym is. I'm going to show some examples of that as well. We can use these because cloud providers are providing these as part of their platform. That platform as a service we talked about. You don't have to set them up, you don't have to install them, you don't have to buy them. You can just turn them on and try them and see what they say. So I think security really does give us an opportunity to address it. And I don't think in many cases moving to the cloud harms our security posture. I think it improves our security posture. Performance. Moore's law is a great thing. And moving to more modern hardware inevitably often brings a performance benefit over previously. But it's not just on the CPUs. Most people focus on the CPUs. I come from a database background, and one of the things we used to find that I think is going away in many cases now because of these flash drives, solid state storage, and NVMe flash in Oracle Cloud's case, databases used to be more bound by I/O operations per second, IOPS. Database is an engine for going and looking up data and storing data. Therefore, that persistence and grabbing the data back from persistence means we are bound by the storage performance. And Oracle Cloud can deliver on a single server 500,000 IOPS. I mean, that is, if anybody's ever looked at I/O performance, that is a staggering number that we couldn't have achieved previously, which is why I say I think Oracle running on Oracle is a great thing. Their IOP numbers are higher than other cloud providers, just as simple as that. Not to say the other cloud providers have got bad platforms, Oracle's is just massively performant in that way. And 500,000 IOPS, to give you an idea, one of the fastest drives we used to use was about 150 IOPS. We used to often benchmark it on 150 IOPS versus a single server being able to deliver 500,000. That's just staggering numbers. Don't be fooled by clock speed. You know, one of the things we look at when we migrate to customers is these things called spec int rate values, which is a measure of the throughput of the processors. People will often look at processor speed and say, well, they're not really moved on in recent years. In fact, in many cases, the clock speeds that are advertised have actually fallen slightly. That's actually not the case, although the core speed might have fallen. The processors have got a lot more intelligence around pipelining, and the size of the onboard caches, the L1, L2 caches, etc., has improved significantly. So you will predominantly find you're getting a performance benefit from the CPUs, as you'd expect as well. Oracle OCI, again, just one of the sort of more unique features of Oracle is that there's no over-provisioning or core sharing inside Oracle. What do I mean by that? If you look at an Amazon vCPU, for instance, you can buy a single vCPU server. That vCPU is a single thread inside what we call a hyper-threaded core. So a processor core, and we all talk about cores these days, has typically 2 threads inside it. Single vCPU you are getting, in Amazon you're getting one of those threads. In Oracle, we talk about OCPUs, and you are getting both the threads inside that core, so there's no contention inside it as well. Networking, we speak to most customers, and most customers are still on 1 gig networks. Well, inside cloud environments, we're typically talking, in Oracle's case, for instance, 25 gig networking. So the ability to shuttle data between servers is hugely improved as well. Plus, obviously, we rely on a cloud vendor's bandwidth, which is typically much higher than we've got on site as well. So I don't think this should surprise anybody. Performance by going to a very modern hardware platform is going to often uptick significantly. How does it impact BAU, though, getting into some of this sort of more operational procedures and how we can look at the cost savings? So whenever we talk about cloud, we talk about this idea of a shared responsibility model. People haven't looked at this, do so because it really does illustrate where the responsibility lies in the cloud side of things. And you can see here that as we move towards software as a service, well, we're only responsible for the data we put in and the data we get out of it. As we move backwards, the customer becomes responsible for more and more. But contrast even that infrastructure as a service, which I contrasted to going and buying hardware, actually doing the physical cabling and networking and racking and providing the storage and putting servers in place, and even the virtualization tier typically is now somebody else's responsibility. So a hardware support cost reduced, fall, our storage management costs will fall. They won't zero out. Somebody's still got to add storage in as we need it, but it's very easy to do either through REST APIs, a command line, or a graphical console, and the network management side falls as well. And I'm going to come on to a slide shortly that I think illustrates why I think that's important, and a couple of slides to talk about it as well. So OS, we're now talking about autonomous capabilities coming into play. Operating systems, Oracle Linux that patches itself, that secures itself. Nobody wants to be in a place where they have a poor security posture of vulnerability, especially now as we're having to move more things to being online and serviced online because our user community are now all sitting at home. As we move those things in, we have to be aware that there will be people looking to take advantage of it. So that idea that we can scale things up automatically, but do it in a secure fashion is really important as well. The database cloud service, that PaaS service that we talk about in the middle, where actually Oracle are looking after certain aspects of the database, the actual installation and the provisioning of it, and making sort of one-click patching, etc., moves us to a process of streamlined administration. Again, I'm going to come back to that as a theme. So wait for the slides to show. Yeah, I think they're showing up now. So how does it impact us with patching and upgrading? Well, actually, when we deploy onto a standardized PaaS platform, that idea that the service provider, Oracle in this case that I'm talking about, give us a standardized database platform. I actually put this in, I presented these slides back in November, and I just realized I used the herd immunity. That wasn't a reference actually to what we're going through right now. But one of the key messages for any standardization is the fact that if we're on the same platform, deployed in the same way, on the same infrastructure as other people, we don't run into those one-offs that we might have encountered previously as well. And we can rapidly and elasticity clone these databases for non-production purposes or for testing a patch or an upgrade if we want to as well. And if people are familiar with cloud, I've got IAC in there, infrastructure as code. We can use things like Terraform to do this, so to spin up an environment for a developer. So no more of this, I've got an idea, I want to do some development. Well, I'll get round to installing that in 2 or 3 weeks' time. We can provide these systems to people immediately. Security patching, it's going to be common in the cloud. If you haven't looked at it and you're running Linux, Oracle provides something like ksplice. Ksplice allows zero downtime kernel patching. We can move our kernel to the latest version with zero downtime. The autonomous technologies, self-patching, self-securing, talked about the WAFs as the last point as well. And if you want to look at things like containerization, Kubernetes is the ultimate evolution. If nobody's heard of chaos engineering, developed by the sort of Netflix guys, they realized that in old school world, I had a database, an application server, a web server, and I had a copy of that for my DR. Nice and simple, relatively easy to test. When you move to the cloud, and if people have heard of microservices, I'm running on hundreds, potentially thousands of servers, but I'm running microservices inside those across multiple regions, across multiple data centers. How do I test this? So they have something called Chaos Monkey. They have the Simian army or a bunch of helpers. And the Chaos Monkey will just go in and randomly kill parts of their infrastructure. And it self-heals and works through, and works itself out. So because they are constantly killing parts of their infrastructure, they know their high availability, they know their disaster recovery practices are up to scratch. There's one of the new banks, I won't name them because it was a presentation I saw from them. I'm not sure if it's public information. I guess it is. You can probably go and find it if you're interested. One of the new challenger banks are very much app-only banking. That's exactly the infrastructure they're going for, which is totally different to if you imagine how obviously our traditional high street banks would be. So coming back to that part I talked about a minute ago with, storage administration, network administration for. This isn't about removing jobs, and we're all hearing all of these scare stories. I mean, I've just taken some examples from there, but actually what people aren't talking about is the good news stories as well, which are these kind of things where IT is kind of doing to itself what it's done to lots of other organizations in the past. We're automating, we're providing all of those efficiencies. But actually, IT still created way more jobs than it ever took away in the first place. I think that's very true of this. We'll just move to doing different things. And I wanted to just throw this quote up by Francis Maud. And this is where I normally have a little bit of a dig about our government not doing too many great things, but this is one example. But hard to knock an organization right now going through what they do. But the key thing here is focusing on outputs and outcomes. And I think that's what this allows us to do. And for me, that's the big benefit of the cloud. If we move and if we use the cloud as an opportunity to move away from focusing on the blinking lights and what goes in and managing things, to focus on the outputs that come out the back of that, be that more BI or more reporting, as the previous presenter was talking about. Those are outcomes. Those are the things the user community care about. And if we can allow somebody else to do the keeping the lights on at a cheaper and more efficient basis than we do, because nobody thanks you for keeping the lights on, but I'm sure as hell kick you when the lights go off. So that to me is one of the key messages I like to talk about cloud. What are our opportunities to provide better outcomes with the same people as we've got right now? So sort of final few slides I wanted to talk about now is, as we move to any cloud environment, you know, this idea I mentioned earlier on right sizing, you know, we need to make sure as we move, I don't like to see people move on a one-to-one basis. We already talked about Moore's Law and the fact that we're going to be running probably on faster systems. So moving on it, if I've got 8 CPUs on premises, 8 CPUs in the cloud, often doesn't work. It can be seen as reducing risk, but the reality is probably different. We size the peak, so we waste money off when we're off peak. We can now use the elasticity. The systems perhaps were inadequately sized for peak. So do we allow them to scale even higher than the current peak when we go into cloud, because that provides us the ability to do our month end, year end, whatever it may be, quicker. And clearly when we're migrating off old hardware, it means it's not a like-for-like comparison. I talked about some of the things like the spec int we can use. So how do we right size? Well, that's what we'll often work with our customers for, but yeah, you can do it yourselves. It's about putting science into the specification. So looking at the spec int rate values, looking at the IOP metrics we have on-prem, and then what we're moving to in the cloud. Are we experiencing IO waits on our platform right now? If we are, and they go away, we'll actually see CPU fall because the CPU is busy because it's waiting for the IO to complete. But don't expend too much effort. You know, we used to talk about, or we used to have, if anybody's been through it, sizing meetings that used to go on for days or weeks as part of the process. We have elasticity. We can scale up, we can scale down. So we shouldn't expend too much effort on it. But track your actual usage, because it is pay as you play. So one of the things we always work with customers around is, when you start using this, let's look at what you're using. Let's compare that to the metrics we're getting out of the platform and actually be able to scale down if you need it. Don't forget the ability to scale up as well if you need it, and putting in that auto scaling, because well, recent events really remind us of that need. So where do customers typically begin? Non-production use cases, or just migrating your DR to the cloud, having a very skinny version of DR in the cloud. It also gives us the ability to test the DR that we might not have been able to do in the past, to stand it up and prove. And that not just test the DR of the technologies we're DRing to the cloud, but can we then go and use them over a public internet connection, for instance? So do we have a DR against loss of premises themselves as well, or loss of physical location? At Inoapps, we have, and this is the sort of one pitch, if you like, inside the project, inside the presentation, we have a cloud readiness assessment that does that. It gathers the real world metrics for your platform to give you some right sizing into the cloud, allows an analysis of all of your inbound and outbound connections, maps that to some infrastructure as a code so you can do a rapid cloud deployment. It gives you your options on Oracle Cloud or on other cloud providers if you want as well, and contrasts those with some science against one another. So if this is something you're interested in, give us a shout and we're more than happy to come and run that for you. And then identify opportunities to extend and improve using the cloud. eBiz gets mentioned a lot. We do a lot of eBiz, but we do a lot of people software, we do various things. But the one thing I know from managing eBusiness Suite in the past is things like the Oracle Identity and Access Management, Oracle SOA Suite for integrations. They were great products, but they were really hard to support at times. That we spent more time probably supporting them than we spent supporting the eBiz platform itself. We can take those out in any migration and look at something like Identity Cloud, where Oracle just provide a platform for sign-in and identity and the identity integration for us. We don't have to do anything, and we can remove a part out of it, stop worrying about it, stop supporting it. Oracle provide it, give great SLAs around it, and then we can get on with more important tasks that actually add value back to the organization. Talked about at the start, once we actually deploy stuff into the cloud, making sure it's successful as well. And I think part of that is monitoring the real user experience as well, and looking at what the user sees as they do it. Because if we move stuff to anywhere, whether that's on-prem or in the cloud, and the users are getting errors and response times, the project's not successful. Response times that have gone down, sorry, the project's not successful. But it also gives us the ability to focus on performance and diagnostic work on the worst performing pages, for instance, rather than just arbitrary ratios. You know, years ago when I started in Oracle, we used to talk about what's called the cache hit ratio. And we used to say, well, if that goes from 85% to 95%, the system must be performing faster. In reality, most of the time, if you'd ask the users, they noticed no discernible impact as well. But we still tune these things anyway. This focuses on what the real users see. And we want to know about problems when, or hopefully before, users report them, but be able to look historically as well. So I just dragged a couple of these out of one of our systems internally. And the one on the left is actually the minimum response times for the maximum response time, sorry, for various different systems in the last, I think we've just got the last 7 days of that yet, something like that. And the black line you can see really low down at the bottom is the 1.5 second threshold. So anything above that is responding slower than 1.5 seconds. So we put this in for a brand new customer system, and instantly we were able to look back and say, okay, there's some big spikes in there. Let's go and find out what they are. What you'll find with some of those, and I'll come on to, is they're not actually real users trying to do something, and I'll come back to that in a second. But at the top in the right-hand side, we've got response times. So I don't want to be seeing 500 codes in there. That's an error in the system. 404s, I don't think I've got any in there, but 404s, page not found. These are things I want to look at and make sure we're tracking and focusing on the real user experience. But this data is collecting all the time for me, and I can go and look at it. So if a user says, my system was performing slowly at 2 o'clock this morning, I can go back and look at what was happening at 2 o'clock this morning. And as that user saw it, that kind of diagnostic information is much more efficient than just saying, well, all my CPU was fine across it. We can actually use a lot of this data to look at validation of access, improved security, and detect anomalies. So we are collecting and evaluating the access. From when was it done, from where, and what was accessed. And we can use that to track unauthorized access or attempts to do unauthorized access. And that's what those big spikes were, people trying to do certain things. And the cloud technologies actually allow us to start mitigating some of those. So we use things like load balancer rules inside it to be able to push the access to people trying WordPress admin site, push them to a separate site, in inverted commas, as it says there, that just says, nice try, try again. I mean, I wouldn't poke the hornet's nest with hackers, but that's kind of the thing we can do. Feed them to a honeypot or a dummy site. And we can also feed that information into these web application firewalls to say, block access from these geographical locations, block access from these specific IPs. A lot of the WAFs have things like IP blacklisting in there and IP whitelisting as well. Where do we go once we've looked at it? Well, as I said earlier on, cloud really is, in my opinion, only about, not just about economics. It's about very much being able to benefit in terms of agility and how we architect things going forwards. We can use the same technologies as enterprises use as smaller organizations without those large upfront costs. Things like WAFs were typically expensive. We can now use them for free, for instance, in Oracle's case. We can do rapid prototyping. We can spin systems up and tear them down at very little additional cost to ourselves as well. For those PaaS services, be that database as a service, Oracle Autonomous for data warehousing and things like that at the moment, we can use those and move towards outcomes. We devote resource that right now is currently spending its time doing keeping the lights on, move that very much to somebody that's focusing on an actual outcome and providing value. So that's, I think I've run pretty much bang on time. That's really me. I'll whip through the last few slides fairly quickly, but I genuinely do believe that a migration of anything you've got into a cloud environment don't just focus on the pure economics. You're missing the point. There's lots of value we can derive from it as well from doing that. And more than happy to talk to anybody who's got any questions or just interested in some of their experience in the past. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much for that, James. I've not seen any questions come through at the moment on that. If anyone does have them, if they want to send them in quickly, please do. Just whilst we've got a couple of minutes between speakers, I just wanted to remind everyone that we are recording the session at the moment. I have had a couple of people asking that. Once today is over, we will just check through the recording, make sure it's all okay, and then we'll send a link to everybody that registered. It doesn't look like we do have anyone sending in questions, so I'm going to hand over to our final presenter of the day, which is Arun Majumdar of Technology Risk Partners. Arun's presentation today is delivering a secure and compliant digital transformation. I'm just going to hand over the control to you now, Arun.
Yep, morning. Thank you, Jasmine. How are you?
Hi, Arun. I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. Thank you.
Good.
Can you see my screen and everything looks okay?
It doesn't seem to have come up for me just yet. Have you accepted the presenter link?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I can see it now. Thank you.
Okay.
Great.
Good.
I'll let you get on to your presentation.
Do you want me to start? I'm at like 8 minutes early. Is that okay? I'm guessing.
Yeah, that's completely fine, Arun. If you want to get going.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. So hi, my name is Arun. Hopefully we'll spend next half an hour or so talking a little bit about a topic which has not been talked very often in digital transformation phase. It is quite important from a security controls, regulators and auditors perspective. And I think the topic going to be presenting today is not only higher education, it's actually relevant to any other organization, any other client going through any digital transformation, Oracle, SAP, Workday, Dynamics, or any other second-tier ERPs of that in matter. Quickly pass through, that was the abstract. We have put it onto the website initially when we were thinking what to present around this topic. So the idea came into my mind as well. I've been working in this industry for a certain number of years, have delivered a number of similar kinds of engagement, and whenever talking to a digital transformation team, talking about experiences, always found a little bit of hesitation around understanding what security has been implemented and how that has an impact on a final test of that implementation by your regulators and auditors, asking some difficult question and challenging the design and the implementation of those security good practices. So that's what the topic came into mind. So hopefully we'll make sure that everyone takes away some of those ideas from the session, and that would be a success. Just quickly introducing myself. I've been working in professional services all along, was running ERP assurance practice, primarily doing IT external audit, IT internal audit, program assurance, control optimization, GRC implementation kinds of projects. I've seen the being into the heart of the digital transformation, seen how security controls and GRC have been implemented appropriately or sometimes not at all. So these are some of the clients I have worked recently. We're working with starting a Oracle supported risk consulting company. We're helping client on answering any of the question in this topic. Primarily, a lot of work I've done in UK public sector, be it departments and ministries, universities, NHS trust, boroughs and councils. So hopefully we're going to bring a lot of experience in that area. Two of the clients I have worked in the past is two of the fantastic university we have in the UK. I have associated with the Big Four on delivering internal audit engagement. So I've done IT general controls reviews, business process controls review, controls optimization, segregation of duty projects, business process gap analysis. So I have some understanding of the higher education system, but overall a good understanding of Oracle technology, what it can offer in terms of addressing some of the challenges in this area. technically worked more on the Cambridge University side as a client rather than Oxford too much. Just moving ahead, just to kind of asking some initial question depending on the audience who has joined us today. So depending on if you're running an Oracle EBS system or any other on-prem system, or you're in the middle of digital transformation or even gone live, just prompting you to asking some of these questions like how you are managing the risk. The security controls is nothing but identifying the risk, doing a risk assessment, putting the right remediation, and continuously monitoring for those risks. So again, slides will be distributed as well, but some of the key questions which I usually ask to some of my clients, asking, okay, how are you managing risk now? Are you very clear what sort of risk you have in your organization? You have listed them down, you have put the right mitigation in place, using Oracle Cloud's out-of-the-box offering as much as you can, driving automation. And then are you continuously monitoring your risk for future, for some of the Oracle features and release management coming in? Because these are the questions they'll get asked anyway by their auditor. So in this area, we're just trying to help the client to get prepared for those surprises in the future. Moving on. So this is the what as a message I want everyone to take back today. As an implementation of security or control is nothing but risk management. This is absolutely how you do a risk assessment, remediation, and continuous monitoring of the risk. And I'm going to keep reiterating this agenda across the presentation slides. So some of the primary reason, as I say, I've worked across more than 300 Oracle and similar projects. So these are some of the reasons that why this topic has been so less discussed and in turn so less implemented. Typical reasons are it was not in scope, or the budget constraint, or the SI which we have or they have appointed in the first place do not provide the service. With cloud coming in, a lot of SI are providing rapid implementation, and believe me, I'm a fan of that as well. So we do rapid implementation of GRC projects, but sometimes rapid implementation does not give the client to kind of sit down, take a pause, and think about, okay, hang on, the program is going fine. Have we identified all the risk in the organization we care for? And have we done enough engagement with our internal audit and external audit to understand what they need from the transformation? I think it's quite surprising to see that so many digital transformation happening. And when I ask that, have you spoken to external audit or internal audit? You ask that question back to your transformation project, and I'm sure that you will be surprised by the responses. Sometimes there are like people have been traditionally doing things in this way. In EBS, we have done it this way. There was no engagement or requirement from the business. The SIs sometimes say that you don't need that at all. There's a confusion around the client saying it is a module in Oracle which they have not licensed for or they have not bought. I think, but one reason which tops everything is this one, right? So I have a small use case at the back of the presentation, but I was talking to a university in Midland, and I said, what have you done in your digital transformation? How you have managed your risk? And they say, oh, we have gone live. Going live does not mean your risks are mitigated. They're still there. So you need to understand what they are and what have you done, and try to do a bit of gap analysis and quickly put the remediation into those controls as well. Moving on. So why you need to implement that security and controls in the first place, right? So apart from the answers you already know, like, okay, your auditor wants to do more controls-based audit. Because of that, you need to have an implementation of the controls in the first place. That's going to reduce significantly in the audit fees, and the auditors are not doing the audit in a substantive way, which was 40 years old methodology. You have an internal requirement from your internal audit or risk management, securing those risks they care about. Depending on which jurisdiction you come in, there's a regulatory and compliance requirement as well. There's a SOX requirement for US private listed universities who have campuses in UK and Europe across. We are working with a US university in that area. And then more sort of from an university ownership side or higher education ownership side is more about good governance and reputation. The university I have worked with, and we are talking to, reputation is everything. I have a 4-year-old daughter who eventually will go in a university in the UK, right? So I'll really be cautious about which university goes, which has a lot of reputation bringing on the table. Some of the other things are fraud prevention. So I have again a slide from Oracle, my good friends at Oracle, where they have presented in open world about this topic, and the safeguarding of data. So James presented earlier about the shared responsibility, and that's exactly the point I'm going to stress here, that the Oracle provides the security on the box to make sure the processes are compliant and secure, but the client has an ownership on taking or safeguarding their data, and one of the risks to the data is access risk and segregation of duties. So you need to understand who has access to what, and does this violate any of the risk which you kind of care in the first place. So going back to the iteration again, is just about understanding the access risk, the fraud risk, the reputation risk you have, and trying to leverage as much as Oracle out of the box control you can. So this is the slide I borrowed it from my good friends at Oracle, which they have presented in Open One in London, so as Dubai, where we're talking about what can go wrong from a weak controls perspective. And these are some of the tip of the iceberg which has been reported onto media about how a system has been exploited, controls has been overlooked and kind of bypassed because they were not set up appropriately in the first place. And there may be so many other reasons or so many other scenarios which have not been reported, because it's easy to miss something if you're not looking for that, right? So there's a lot of things possibly goes undetected because no one is proactively monitoring that. Coming back to my agenda as well, like continuous monitoring. So yes, you have gone live with a set of controls, but are you continuously monitoring them to make sure that they operate effectively? At the same time, just kind of having a balance between the automation to make sure that most of the tasks are automated using Oracle functionality, so that you just look into the exception part and do your due diligence and your risk mitigation around this exception part as well. Okay, moving on. So okay, so this is a myth again. When I talk to so many digital transformation, I say, do you have a risk register? Have you listed all of the risks? And they keep talking about the project risk they have, but I'm not talking about the project risk. I'm talking about enterprise risks. The project risk and enterprise risk are not the same thing. Project is there forever. If you're in the middle of transformation, the organization may not have the budget and might stop the project. That doesn't mean that you as an organization does not have those risks in the first place. So get it very clear that the project risk register is not an organization risk register. Organization should come from the organization, which is kind of one single source of truth, which drives that what the organization care for or the universities care for. Typical examples are your overpayments and duplication of payments and vendor frauds, unmatched invoices, tolerances, access controls, and SOD risk. Going back to the topic, going back to the agenda, saying, okay, as an organization, say universities or educational trust, you need to assess, remediate, and continuously monitor those risks using as much as possible Oracle automation. Okay, so this is an interesting slide. So I think the problem is when I talk to digital transformation client, and I say I speak to 10, 12 new clients every week, or not every week, every month, sorry. And then trying to understand that where some work has or has not been done, but there is so much confusion around who owns this piece of puzzle, right? So I talk to project director, I talk to head of finance, I talk to head of HR, I talk to compliance people, I talk to internal audit head, and there has been a confusion around, okay, is it IT who is going to own the risk? Is it the service provider, the support provider, some contractors on the ground, Oracle, business? But actually the right answer is the CFO. So the right answer is CFO, and it's not I'm saying. I have a very limited experience compared to Deloitte, who is a 187 years old firm and the largest in the world. But they said that actually CFO is the final responsible for security controls in the finance system. I think I'm going to extend that to a little bit, saying it's not only CFO, it's about CFO and the head of finance and the head of HR. So everyone has a shared responsibility to make sure that the controls and security, compliance, and frauds are rightly mitigated and identified and assessed at the same time in the reverse order. So what if I think just kind of a message back to the client community as well. If you are struggling to bring this topic into your scope, if you're struggling to bring this topic into attention, go talk to your CFO and the head of finance and head of HR, because their jobs and their bonuses, their own reputation and the university reputation is at stake for this piece of work. You don't want to possibly hire an executive who has been to an organization which has gone through a £1 million or $100,000 fraud in the first place, right? So if you are struggling to make sure that people listen to this topic, which you are going to present back to your project and your BAU processes, talk to your head of finance, head of HR, and the CFO. I'm sure you'll get the support from them. Sometimes, I think most of the time, that there has not been enough engagement with the key stakeholder or enough engagement from the CFOs or the head of audit or the head of internal audit. So go and try to talk to them. If you do more engagement with them, they're going to come back with supporting the idea. Okay, so now what is these security and controls everyone talks about, which without just kind of breaking down that into a very simpler way, saying that when we say that an organization needs to have implemented best practice security and control, I'm an ex-auditor as well, so all we want to understand that how the organization has implemented the risk and controls for the IT controls area, the business controls area, and the segregation of duties and access control area. So these are very three simple areas which the project needs to scope about. IT control should come from a combination of IT community of people, compliance people, internal audit people, understanding your joiners process, leavers process, movers process, privilege access, password security, change management, operations management, and what sort of control the organization is running in that area, and how you evidence back to the community of regulators and auditors that you are effectively managing and controlling that area. Automated configurable business control is basically talking about how you have leveraged your out-of-the-box configuration set to a recommended setting, which is actually mitigating a risk in the first place. So again, going back to the example slide I've shared, talking about your tolerances, your approvals, your matchings, your payment terms, to talk about how you have configured them, which is actually mitigating a risk in the first place. And the last one is segregation of duty, I think, which has more understanding than these two other areas, where people understand what needed to be done in this area. And again, there are Oracle tools and Oracle automation available that how this can be done. I've seen from Oracle GRC to very complex customization has been done in this area. Whichever works for the organization. If you want to keep it very simple in Excel, that's fine. If you want to go ahead for Oracle GRC, that's fine. But these areas needs to be think through, needs to be mitigated and addressed before you say, yes, my digital transformation is ready for the audit as well. So again, going back to making this a little bit of complex saying. So now I said IT controls, business controls, and segregation of duties control. All you need to do is understand what risks are in these areas, and again, do a bit of risk remediation and continuous monitoring in certain areas to make sure that they are addressed. Here I'm going to talk a little bit about automation and using Oracle feature in an optimum way, because certainly if you look into these three areas, and I assume that your university or your organization has these scopes into the processes, you're possibly looking somewhere like, I don't know, 10, 12 IT controls, 12, 15 business control, 15, 20 SOD controls overall. So overall 40, 50 controls. Sometime if you have the requirements clear, but the implementation part is not done using Oracle functionality in an optimum way, you end up doing possibly a lot more work, and you have to do a bit of remediation and issue management. So I think what I'm trying to stress here, that have an understanding of how Oracle automation can help to address most of this control and configure it, design it a more optimum way, so that you just do the monitoring of the exception only, and you don't have a burden of running those controls on a regular basis in a bit of heavy lifting way. You just design it, embed it into the processes to make sure that you take advantage of as much as automation as you can, and then you just do the monitoring part for the exception only. Exception comes in, say potential fraud payments. So you want possibly a monthly report on potential fraud payments or a monthly control there, where you review or possibly say 50 potential fraud payments in a month, and you kind of quickly review them and say, okay, 49 of them I can understand, and I have a rationale why they were processed in a certain way. But for this one, I don't know, so I need to find out more who is the requester, who is the owner for that payment. But you don't want end up in a situation where you have, say, thousands of payments coming, and then you started reviewing all of the payments to understand which ones are fraud or not. So using the Oracle functionality in a more balanced way to possibly give you the power of automation and help you to address the compliance and reduce your manual compliance task at the same time. Okay, so this is possibly the slide everyone has been waiting for. So this is basically what you see is kind of how these controls and securities are implemented. So if you see the top banner, which is talking about your typical implementation plan, so you're talking about requirement gathering, you go to design, build, and test phase, and then you deploy, support, and then the future is kind of a release management area. So for each of these pillars, once you get the slide, you can possibly use it as a checklist to understand that what has been done into the project and what needed to be done. Again, talking to your external auditor, internal auditor, your head of finance, head of HR, and CFO to understand at what extent you need to go as an organization. Not all steps and all scopes are applicable for every organization. Quick example, talking to a small real estate client, 150 people in Reading, they say we want to implement that. I say for 150 people, only 10 people have access to finance system. You don't look into such complexity, you possibly make it very, very simple. So do your due diligence to understand what circumstances you are going through and what are the sort of risk you as an organization care for, and then do a bit of understanding that what steps are applicable or not. On the next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of these areas which are, I think, are fundamental for any organization to consider. And some of these areas are that you need to kind of make sure your risk registers are refreshed based on the new cloud risk coming in if you are moving on to Oracle Cloud. Trying to understand what industry best practices are. So what other universities or educational trusts are doing, how they are leveraging the technology. Understand what Oracle offers out of the box, and understand what best practices are there where you can adopt very, very quickly. And then that going to help you to form the risk assessment requirement and then see, okay, what controls are available out of the box, as I said, to mitigate those risks, quickly building those risk and controls matrices, quickly build your segregation of duties matrix, and then embed the controls into the processes as much as you can. As I say, even if you're running say 5 control, 10 control, or 2000 control, for example, I have a telecom client in France who has 2000 controls because it's a SOX listed client. Depending on how many controls you have, my recommendation is try driving as much automation as you can, because you don't want to end up with a lot of manual compliance activity. Going back to this slide, you kind of building the RCM, building the segregation of duties matrix, and then in the testing, you need to understand what control scenarios you need to test on top of your end-to-end business process testing. Auditors will come eventually, and then they'll ask, okay, what control scenario has been tested? So make sure that what control scenario you are putting are kind of you can map that back to your risk assessment, saying these are the 20 risks we care about. So that's why we created this 78 scenarios to control test or not. And then think about the change management and ownership in the future, because a lot of organization is coming to a good governance. UK is coming with an UK SOX regulation as well. Public sector has a lot of regulation requirement from public sector auditor and cabinet office and any other regulators in public sector. So depending on those requirements, I think in the UK as well, in Europe, there is a control culture coming, where if it's a SOX organization from US, an entity in UK or Europe, they understand controls and SOX, but UK is kind of trying to catch up on that area. So trying to think about the governance and ownership of the framework, understanding what people's roles are, clearly defining them, and kind of put a measure of success and measure of failure for that area. Again, possibly a bit of advanced, maybe in 2-3 years of time, there will be such requirement coming in. But going back to the slide, you need to then think about the release management part, because now you say have your business processes and you have your control framework, and Oracle is changing every quarter, right? Your auditor is coming and asking that when the last time the business processes were changed, the control frameworks were changed, because in an year when they come back for audit, Oracle has come up with 3 or 4 new releases. So as an organization, you need to not only have to do your other regression testing, you need to make sure the business process and control frameworks are valid and fit for purpose as well. So try to think about how you embed that area into your overall release management methodology and processes. Into the slide itself, if you have ever experienced a digital transformation scenario, which I'm sure everyone has in this call. If you remember the panic scenario when they say, oh, there will be an audit going on, and you say, okay, I have already these things to be delivered, which is keeping me awake 11 o'clock in the night. Now I have to prepare for this audit coming in from auditors or internal audit from regulators and from different organizations. So if you are prepared from a risk assessment perspective, then you are covered for the surprises in that area. So think about doing the security controls work upfront is kind of helping you to do a bit of progressive assurance, which we call. The reason is when the auditor comes in, then review into your UAT and your design document, the mill has already spilled over, right? So the processes had already been designed and fixed and approved and all they're giving a bit of feedback retrospectively, saying, okay, you have not done this thing in the past appropriately or something like that. But if you are on top of this area, then you kind of provide a progressive assurance to the organization to say, at least very clear about that we had these 20 risks, 18 of them had been mitigated by the processes, and this is how we evidence. We know how these 2 risks are not mitigated, and then you can put the right mitigation control in place, which may be outside Oracle. So think about that. And then the other thing I'm going to stress on this slide is about engagement. So keep engaging with your internal audit or external audit and ask them questions. And because I'm sorry, I have another slide on that topic as well, which I'm going to cover in a minute. So yeah, again, I'm going to keep talking to your CFOs and finance controllers and head of finance and head of HR to get the support in this area if you are struggling for. This is a typical project plan built onto the methodology from the previous slide to talk about how each of these activity needs to happen, typically what durations are there for, and what are the key dependencies for each of this topic. This may or may not applicable for your organization. So yeah, do your due diligence, use it as a checklist. First of all, see which one applicable for you, and then go and try find out what has or has not been done in certain areas. So this is a slide talking about what help you available in certain areas. So you can talk to your internal auditor and risk management. You can talk to your external auditor. You can talk to your regulators. You can talk to Oracle. They have provided you a solution. You can talk to your SI. You can, since I'm assuming you're a university and have a risk management department, then talk to your risk management faculties. They are sometimes visiting faculty like myself. I go to a Midland University. People like myself, they go to university, they are engaged. So talk to them. It's a free of cost conversation. So you can easily reach out and understand what things needed to be done in this area. The other help you can get is from definitely Big Fours. They are there, and the Deloittes and the PwCs of the world. You can talk to the Mazars and Grant Thornton Productivity. You can talk to boutique risk consulting firms, or you can have contractors in certain areas as well. Just a little bit of my experience working with contractor. There's a very few of them fantastic, but most of them are very generic. They sometimes possibly as expensive as a Big Four or a mid-tier professional services budget, and they do not provide a quality assurance. So yeah, you use your due diligence and then kind of choose which help you need. But first, reach out to your free help, which is your external auditor, internal auditors, and your risk management faculties in certain areas. Moving on, hopefully doing good on time. So this is a project we have just kicked off with a university which is in the heart of Birmingham, where we have spoken to their CFOs and the head of risk possibly 2 months back and asked the same question as I asked you guys on initial slides. And it took me a couple of weeks and a number of emails to find out that mostly nothing had been done in certain areas. So we are doing a free of cost project, and I'll mention why this is free of cost. So we are building a risk register for them, mapping all the risks they care. So we're going to bring certain risks we have seen other universities care about. We flush it out, and then we talk to different business owner, and then they provide what risk they care about in the HR side and the finance side and the grant side from a university perspective. And then we're going to do a bit of mapping with those risks into the automated control as much as in Oracle. As I said, control automation is important. And then we're going to prepare a risk and controls matrices for them to effectively manage the risk in the organization. The value they're getting from the engagement is they're driving an effective risk management. They're getting audit compliance from their auditor. They're preventing themselves from the fraud, definitely, and their reputation as well. They're driving controls automation as possible, and they're going through a BCS accreditation. So for that, there is a requirement that you need to do a bit of risk assessment in the organization or in the university to understand what risks are there and how you are treating them. And why this is not costing them a penny, because we are using their risk management faculties and their master students who are doing risk management. And this project, they're delivering it as a project. So they're helping their university. We're doing a mentoring for them. We're bringing a lot of resources to them and the technology which we have access to, but they are doing all the heavy lifting work. So they're definitely costing university a fortune. Consider they've gone to professional services and paid possibly a very hefty sum of money. They're helping their own university managing their risk, and the students are working on a practical industry project. So their plan is, once this is successful, they are going to reach out to other universities who are implementing Oracle Cloud or any other cloud solution, and that they are going to propose this as a service at a reduced price because they have a pilot to take. And then their CFOs is going to talk to other CFOs in the university. As I say, CFOs are the owner in this area. So they have created a very, very, very good model, and we're very happy to mentor them in that space. So given that, I think that brings me to the end of the slide, where I think I'm going to do a bit of final iteration about the implementation of security control is nothing but your risk management. So identifying the risk, doing a risk assessment, finalizing them, putting automated controls against those risks as much as possible, and then continuously monitoring them for future for the exception is going to really create a good environment for the organization, save them and protect them from fraud and from weak system design, vulnerability, and threats as much as it can. And I think it's going to really create a good governance and culture and help the reputation of the university, which is, I think, as I say, I have a personal reason to understand the reputation of the university in the first place, but I have a little one at home. So given that, I'm going to possibly hand back to you, Jasmine.
Hi, Arun. It's Alexandra here, actually.
Oh, sorry.
No worries. Thanks for your presentation today. It was really helpful. I haven't got any questions come through just yet, so I'm just going to say to the audience, if you've got anything that you want to ask Arun, please do. You can raise your hand, and if you do that, then I can unmute you. Or if you prefer, you can send it into the question box, and I will put those forward to Arun.
Okay, good.
So I'll just give a couple of minutes just to see if anyone wants to do that. We do have most of our speakers from this morning on the line still, so if anyone has any questions for anyone else, then you're welcome to ask those as well, as we are running ahead of schedule, much to my surprise. This is our first time doing a virtual event like this, so you know, it's been good to see that it's run smoothly and to time.
Good.
No questions seem to be coming in just yet. Hopefully it means that you've managed to cover everything, Arun.
Or people understand nothing at all.
Let's go with the first one, that that you've covered everything for them. Nope, doesn't seem to be coming in. Doesn't look like anything's going to be coming in. Well, we've just got a couple more minutes just whilst I cover our final bits. And if anything does come in the meantime, then I will let anyone know. So just sort of to sum up from today, I'd like to say thank you to all the speakers that we've had. Most of them were invited when it was going to be an in-person event, and everyone very kindly has agreed to go virtual. So thank you everyone for doing that. I know it's a little bit different for those that are used to being in person, but we really appreciate the effort and time for everyone. As I said at the beginning of the webinar and partway through, we are recording the session, and we'll send out a recording to everyone that registered. You'll also get copies of slides from the speakers. Before you go, I would really appreciate it if you complete the feedback survey. This will appear on your screen when the session ends. Your feedback is very important to us, especially as this is our first virtual event. So any thoughts, comments would be much appreciated. And then if you can keep an eye out for an email with the recording in the next week or so. For any further information about upcoming webinars, etc., please head to our website, which is ukoug.org. Like I said, we've not had any questions come in, so I guess I'll let everyone go a little bit early today. Thank you again for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you all at the next Higher Education Forum. Bye-bye.